Hey there. I've lit a candle and I'm just lighting this Palo Santo. And I'm going to do a quick card pull using my new deck. I wrote this new deck based on defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. And first of all, the nature of a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism is that it's like mechanical, meaning you press a button and then this, and this kind of happens all at once. Like it sets off maybe like the story in your mind, the energy that you're dealing with, the thing you're trying to avoid, like the behavior that you're doing to compensate or avoid or whatever it is, right? It kind of happens automatically, and that's what the mechanism is. That's why we call it a mechanism. And there are ingredients to that mechanism, right? Things that are supporting it playing out that way. So my new deck that I've made is all about the ingredients to these mechanisms that we have. And so the whole purpose of it is just to help us identify those within ourselves. Of course, this doesn't mean identifying one within ourselves doesn't mean that it's going to go away. But this is a helpful piece when we're doing the shadow work we end up doing when we do my readings, okay? Just a little Palo Santo to wash off the day. I ended up going out and running a bunch of errands and I did a bunch of dancing and just happy to be alive kind of stuff after I processed some emotions and returned to my peaceful self. So here's what I've got so far. It's like going to be a 120 card deck. At first, my intention was just to make it a 60 card, but once I did 60, I just kept realizing more. So I had to go the whole deck. I mean, the whole bit that I had. And so these were just some coasters that I got on clearance. And it came in 20 a pack for 75 cents. So I bought them all. 6 packs. Because I knew I could make a deck out of it, right? Because they're kind of thick. Card-like. And they're just paper coasters. Would you believe that they actually charge $2.97 for 20 of these? Otherwise, so I got them on clearance. And I am a clearance shopper, and something you might not have known about me. I love a good bargain. This was something that my mom would do with us kids, or our girls when we got older. Shop the clearance racks. And yeah, there's just something about getting a good deal, right? Okay. So, I think we'll do 2 picks. Why not? Let's do 2 picks, okay? First pick is going to be this apple. What's the next pick, huh? What's the next pick? Let's do the bag of Palo Santo. So the apple, pick 1. Palo Santo, pick 2. Use your own intuition. Decide if one or more of these has a message for you. We're talking about defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. And if it's not about you, it could be about a situation that you're involved in or someone you know that's close to you. And it could be for the purpose of you understanding them better, maybe. Being able to not take something personally. Okay, let's start with pick 1. Rationalization. Okay. So, anytime that we are rationalizing our situation, we are creating a story for it, right? We're trying to justify something. Now, anything that we're getting from this deck, we are focused on coping mechanisms. So, we're looking at the way these things could be negatively impacting us. Okay, for the purposes of this reading, that's what we're looking at when we look at rationalization. Okay, so rationalization, in a different context would be something more beneficial, possibly even. But in this context, the fact that you're trying to rationalize it, right? The fact that you're telling yourself the story of why it was okay that it happened, or why that it was okay that you did it, or you feel it, or why it's okay that they did it. The rationalization is an indication that you are trying to justify something. And when you're trying to justify something, the only part of you that needs to be that needs to feel justified is an egoic part. And we know that the ego is created as a way to keep us safe. So that means there's something here where you don't feel safe. Okay? So let's get further into it. Deception. Maybe you've had to be deceptive and you're rationalizing it because it's in the highest good of all, because it's an innocent white lie, because they'll never know, because it would hurt them to find out, whatever it is. It could be that the rationalization you're using is just lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself by choosing to tell yourself the story that rationalizes it. And if it's not you, it could be someone else. Perfectionism, right? So maybe this is just a matter of admitting you're wrong, admitting that there was a mistake made, admitting that there's a lesson, looking for the opportunity in this instead of the talking yourself into the comfortable place about it. Go right into the discomfort. Perfectionism obviously comes from, our childhood when we are being trained in a fear of making mistakes. And different people have it rooted in different ways, but if you know about this within yourself, great. That's the first step, acknowledging. Validate why it's there. Accept that it's there, and then accept how you feel about whatever it is, about being wrong or whatever. And then love yourself through that feeling. We've got selfish. So maybe you are justifying something that is actually very selfish, where you're not considering another party. You're only considering yourself, and you're telling yourself over and over again why it's okay. It's like you have it in your mind that you're right. And why would you have it in your mind that you're right? Because something in you doesn't allow you to be wrong. You're only allowing yourself to be perfect. And this definitely has to roots in punishment and reward parenting, right? Like if you got punished when you were wrong, then you grow up to be an adult who's afraid to make mistakes. When in actuality, you got to give yourself a right to be wrong. Okay, so that you're not lying to yourself and so that you're not glossing over things that are actually very selfish. Okay? That's all this is. Now, I want to try to think of an example of when I've done this recently or at all. I'm sure I have, and I'm just trying to think of an example just so I can give you one. Let's see. Anytime that somebody calls me out on something and I'm not willing to look at myself, I would lie to myself, and it's selfish not to look at myself, like especially if it's my children or someone who it really matters, right? I don't know if this directly ties in as an example, but I just thought of something that is a bit amusing, but probably not so much for my child at the time it happened. So I had noticed this wound in myself through dealing with my own mother, and when I notice a wound in myself from dealing with my own mother, I always think, oh geez, I've probably been doing this too. And so I happened to be with my son the next day, and I said to my son, just one of my sons, and I said, I'm working on this wound within myself, and I wonder, have I ever done it to you, where you came to me excited to share your news, and then I like took the wind out of your sails, deflated you and acted like it was no big deal and not important. And he goes, well, you used to do that. He said, I called you out on it. And you said that I shouldn't let what you say affect me so much. And I was like, oh, geez, see how selfish that is? Instead of admitting that I was doing something that wasn't appropriate or that was wrong, that was hurtful, I wanted to be perfect, so I acted like I projected it onto him. I said, oh, well, you should take responsibility for it, you know? Until years later, when I was ready to heal this, I was able to say to him in response, like, oh my gosh, that's terrible, and I do not want to behave that way, and I was projecting when I said that to you, because I must not have been ready to heal it yet. So, I mean, we were able to laugh about it after, and I mean, what can you do but laugh, right? Because, like, I'm not perfect, and thank goodness that my children are resilient, strong young men, you know, that are able to recover and see through my flaws, and who are willing to call me out on my flaws, willing to call me out when I suck. I need that. I want that, you know? Earlier on, it was difficult when they would do it, but like now I'm so glad that I have that, right? And people that I love and care about who will not let me get away with bullshit. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. Remember, it's just information to reflect on. Only take what's helpful to you, leave the rest. And we're going to move on. Pick number 2. I'm just going to shuffle these. So, pick number 2. We're looking at a coping or defense mechanism that may be affecting your life right now. Or next might be the one that gets activated next. First of all, I really want to honor you for being here and being willing to look at this stuff, you know. It's on my way home tonight, I heard the song Man in the Mirror. You know, it's a Michael Jackson song. I was listening to a cover of it. But, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I love that song. And that this reading and this work that you're doing is about making the world a better place in the only way that you possibly could, right? So I honor that. I honor that and I appreciate it. Okay. Okay. Avoiding physical. What this card refers to is that you may be very focused on the spiritual side of life. And you may not have given as much attention to the physical side of life, right? Because we are spirits, souls, having this earth experience in these physical bodies. And when we get on these spiritual journeys, it can, you know, feel a lot nicer to be up in those upper chakras and dealing with the spiritual realm. But it's very important that we work on the physical body all along. And I wish I knew the importance of this sooner, because what I'm finding is like, now I have to catch my body up to allow it to be the vessel that can house all of my spiritual knowledge, right? That's where I'm at right now. I can access a bunch more than I've been bodied because my body can't fit it yet. I have to detox my body. That's why I've been juicing and stuff. And so this is just saying, like, is there a physical aspect of life that you've been avoiding to focus on that might need some attention? And you might be seeing it outside of yourself, because we've got mirroring. There's something that you see outside of yourself. Maybe you see this in someone else, and maybe you don't realize that this is a mirror for you. Okay. Stubborn. So, and this may be a long-standing pattern and something that you've been working on, something that's been difficult. It's, I mean, I can relate to being stubborn in a lot of things. It could be the stubbornness that you see in someone else is actually existing in you, you know? You know, there are a lot of good things about stubborn as well. But in this context, we are looking at the energy that could be acting in detriment to you at this time, or upcoming to heal. We've got busy. So maybe you're just keeping busy, like me, for instance. I was doing shadow work for years. And, you know, thank goodness I did get on kicks where I would be really physical and go on hikes and, you know, be dancing and do exercise or yoga or whatever. It didn't stick, you know, I never got a long-standing habit, but like just the little bits that I did designate myself to do along the years really helped me, right? And, but I stayed busy, but my busyness was in the spiritual realm, you know? So there might be something there where you feel like you just have enough to do, so why would you take your focus off of it long enough to do something else? But now, you know, with the context of what this reading is saying, it's just saying, it's providing you with this reminder that it's just as important to be able to house that spiritual wisdom, you know, like developing the physical human body is very important. Like, you have to be able to process all this high frequency energy, and the dense body needs to be cleaned out and detoxified in order to effectively do that without like really effing you up, really making you suffer, you know? Compensation. Okay, here's something. So there's a detrimental thing that could be happening as part of this, where compensation is when we are maybe like we did something and it hurt someone, and now we're trying to make it better by compensating them in some way, right? Like, oh, I did this, I accidentally kicked over your sandcastle, and now here's $5 because I feel like a jerk, you know? Or I, you know, I took that money from your wallet, and well, here it is back because, you know, whatever it is, like, I made it harder for you to get to work that day when I took the car and didn't even think of you, and now I'm going to give you rides, you know, for a week or whatever it is. It's like this compensation that you're doing, first of all, it could turn into permission to continue doing things as long as you know, compensate for them. And this is an unhelpful pattern, because this could enable you to stay in a pattern of doing things that you end up having to compensate for. And it's like, if you just solve the issue at the root cause, then, you know, this could eliminate this detriment that you're in. But if we put this in the context of everything else, it's like, tit for tat relating, you know, like, oh, you gave me a gift, now I gotta give you a gift, or whatever it is, like that. Like, that's not necessary. Are you in a cycle where you got your mind set on repaying certain karmas by doing the opposite, by making up for it, and keeping yourself really busy and avoiding a lot of things that actually would take precedence to this at this time. PTSD card is suggesting that you're doing this as a way, a response, a reaction to something. What are they reacting to? Okay. 2 cards came out. Lack mindset and judgment. Okay. So judgment, why would you repay the karma? Why would you compensate someone that you felt like you wronged? Because you feel like you're going to be judged for it, right? This is like, what's the word? Redemption. And you're doing this because maybe you've been living in a state of lack and you're blaming it on what you've done, right? I deserve this because I did this. And the lack has activated you in this previous way of explaining how to deal with a certain situation of lack, like of not enough. There isn't enough. I'm suffering. Okay, I've told this story before about why I'm suffering, and now I know what to do. I need to repay this. I need to get busy compensating others. I need to do it, perhaps even just energetically. Perhaps you're like spending all your time saying prayers for people, something like this. This is an interesting one. Got attachment. You're really looking to get something out of what you're doing, right? You're trying to balance the scales. You're trying to compensate for something that's already been done. And therefore you are doing it with expectations that your karma will be balanced out. But actually this isn't how karma works. Like, if you do something to somebody, I don't know what it could be, like anything, right? Like, you are someone who would slap somebody as you walk by. You do that, right? And the karma is yours, and maybe someone will come slap you, but like, what is actually happening? Isn't that the universe said, oh, I'll show you, or you're going to get back the exact thing that you did? No. The energy within you that enabled you to be someone who would slap someone is in you, and now you're living with it, and now you're attracting other experiences that would show you that energy. So maybe that includes someone slapping you, maybe. Even if it doesn't, just carrying that energy could make you a match to a lot of things. Maybe you lose friends because now you got this reputation of being abusive or violent or something like that, right? Like, a lot of things could happen, but you're punished by the energy that you perpetuated that was harmful. If that energy was balanced out and you released yourself from it, that would be the end of it. You don't have to go unslap a person. You know, God is gonna take care of that, right? Like, it's nice to make amends, but what if you couldn't make amends? It's still gonna work out. Like, God has this, right? This orchestration. So I'm not saying that it's never okay or right to apologize, but like, that's the way that you're handling this way of compensating doesn't actually solve it. Because if you just physically go and apologize without doing the work of neutralizing the energy within you, you're not free of that karma. You're not free of that lack mindset. You're not free of the perpetuation of that energy. The only way to do that is to neutralize the energy, which means you accept your own view of it, acknowledge, validate, accept, and love the way you feel about it, and then consider the opposite. 3 ways the opposite is also true. So you create neutrality in the energy by understanding that whatever's true, the opposite is also true, right? It's your feeling that you have about it. It's your judgment of yourself as that was a bad thing to do that is anchoring it in you. Because you have to return yourself to innocence. And if you are innocent, if you return yourself to innocence and neutrality on that energy won't push you to slap people. Because that's not who you really are. Who you are is like heart and love. And the thing that you are experiencing is a separation from who you are. Okay. It's funny because as I read this, what I wanted to say was that you were avoiding the spiritual. But this says you were avoiding the physical. But when I took the avoiding the physical card, the avoiding the spiritual card was right under it, and I did see it. So if I were to incorporate into this into your reading, it could be not that you're just avoiding the physical and focused on the spiritual. It could be that you're avoiding both. It could be that you are just living in a reactionary state. Everything is about survival for you at this point, and you haven't been able to come to center because you're just trying to like stay busy and you are fixed upon a certain way of living out whatever it is that you are feeling and compensating for. There is a mirror for you, okay? So maybe you see it in someone else. Maybe, anything else about this mirror? We got not trustworthy. Maybe you're surrounded by a bunch of people you don't feel like you can trust, and maybe that's because you haven't found that you could trust yourself to caretake yourself on this, because you've just been working yourself to the bone to try to make it right. It's like that energy of like, this is what a real man does, so do this if you want to be a real man. And then like you're always doing that thing, and it's like, oh, am I a real man yet? Am I a real man yet? No. A real man just is a man. Any man who's a man, and he does things, those are the real things a man does. Like, there's no... Whatever story was told to you or decision you made at the time you made it to operate this way, which probably had something to do with survival, it was a false story. It was not trustworthy. You cannot trust whoever gave you the impression that you had to like earn something back or pay someone back or be something to someone or that you were lacking in any way, or that you were less than, or that you were going to be judged, or that you weren't beautiful and enough just the way you are. And that your life is worth indulging in and living in and exploring from a standpoint of you're not trying to prove yourself, you're not being punished, you're not trying to redeem yourself. You just are. You can just be. Bring it back into center. Take some breaths. With each exhale, let go of more and more stress. Okay, you are enough. Now, if you can identify what your trigger is for that PTSD, what makes you put you in this state of needing to compensate and keep yourself busy with doing the right thing? Is somebody enticing you, trying to give you hope towards some certain outcome? If you only live up to whatever, if you only pay back, if you only do the right thing, then something. Like, it could have traumatized you as a child if you were told the story of, like, you know, you're a sinner and you can only get into heaven is if you redeem yourself and do the Hail Marys and, you know, use the rosary beads and say your prayers every night. You know, it's like, what if you're now stuck in a loop of trying to be the good human that gets to heaven? And it's in a trauma reaction because, like, there's like a lot of anxiety left over from being told that as a child. That could be a very scary state, especially when you know as a child you're very curious. You've been led into things that maybe like snapped back, got you in trouble. Someone could tell on you. You know, it's like a lot too much stress for a child. They're supposed to be led by their curiosity. And they're all innocent. We're all innocent. And so now it's time to allow yourself to return back to that innocence by being present with those anxious feelings, with those fears. You know, radical acceptance. What's the worst that's going to happen if you don't do this thing? If you don't stay busy? If you don't avoid doing whatever it is that someone's told you need to avoid? Can you radically accept and be present with how it feels to be that, to do that, to be judged in that way? Can you be the one who loves yourself through that feeling and is present with that feeling while it's with you? So only do this if you feel ready, and if it's something where you want to come back to this reading to do it when you are ready, that's probably a great idea. Use your own discernment on if you are ready, if it's something that you want to do. And these are great questions to ask yourself over time, maybe with a journal, you know, when you're comfortable and when you're ready to be present with those feelings, because, you know, this is probably a very deep kind of thing that you're going to delve into for yourself. And maybe this is why at the beginning of your reading, I was thanking you for doing this process and like starting with the man in the mirror, and then we got mirroring. And, you know, freeing yourself is one more free person in the world who can feel at peace, and more peace in the world can only make the world a better place. And you deserve it, right? You deserve it. If you didn't know, please know. Now remember, this is just information to reflect on. Only take what is useful to you. Leave the rest. And that's that.